What's up, guys? We're back. This time it's with a kind of an upgrade, but kind of a fix from a stock issue that we had. So a little bit of backstory. Monday I was driving and went to shift from second to third, nice and slow, leaving a light, and I heard a big old clunk, and along with that clunk came a bunch of little clunks shortly thereafter. So I was thinking it was something to do with the transmission, and it wasn't the transmission, but what it was is the rear shifter bushing just came unbolted. Instead of just replacing with a $40 stock bushing, I decided to upgrade to Kartboy. So waiting on the mail to get here. Well, it's on its way. I'm going to pull this thing apart. This is what I ended up picking up for the car. Packaging is good. Got a bunch of stickers. That's sweet. All individually packaged. There's our shifter with the bushings already installed into it. End up greasing up all this stuff as well before throwing it in. Here's our front bushings. And the real reason why I got this, replacement rear bushings with some stainless hardware. Shout out to Kartboy. They also threw in a little atomic fireball. That's cool. From what I've seen, all we have to do is remove this heat shield. Careful though, because your O2 sensor is here. So what I'm going to end up doing, I think I'm going to unplug it and try and fandangle this thing around it. And then I'm thinking about trimming the heat shield somewhere around here, just from about there to there, just enough to where I could slide the heat shield back in without having to mess with this every time I want to pull this off to grease my new shifter. Got the two 12mm bolts at the back undone, the one on the passenger side, and the one on the driver's side is kind of difficult to get to for a regular socket. So I'm just going to end up using a 12mm wrench and pop that one off. Alright, two quick tips for anyone who's worried about doing this. Well, first one is just a tip that I always like to tell people. If you don't have a lift or a creeper, I used to have a creeper, but it kind of broke. I've just been using this moving blanket. It's comfortable, it's padded, I can slide around on it, doesn't tear my clothes or anything. When you drop parts and pieces, they don't bounce all over the place, they just kind of fall right there. That's beyond the fact. Next tip, if you've never seen or used the double wrench method, I had to use it for this one right here, this 12mm bolt, because the catalytic converter sits kind of like this, so you can't get a socket up in there. And I was using this little 12mm wrench, but I just couldn't get enough torque on it. Plus, I was scratching myself on the side of the heat shield, so I just used the double wrench method. By locking two wrenches together like this, you can get a lot of extra torque on there. I was able to break it free. So this is what it looks like after I got done trimming it up. I just cut right along the seam there, and then just a straight line from here. I'm going to take a little bit of little file to that just so I don't cut myself. But these are what I used. Got them on Amazon. Alright, here's another tip for you guys. This is your reverse lockout cable, and to be able to get the retaining pin, the roll pin from inside the car underneath the shift knob, to be able to get that out easily, you need to push this forward and then insert an Allen key or something similar into both of those holes to keep them lined up. I couldn't have a second hand on this job, so to pull the reverse lockout cable up in the car and put this is impossible. So what I ended up doing is I took this long extension with a 10mm on it. From the rear of the car, I can reach up with this extension and I can get a lot of force on this without hurting my finger, and it gives me a little bit more room with my second hand to put that Allen key up in both of those holes. So here's what it should look like after you get your Allen key in there. It's held in there pretty well, and I just pushed it all the way to the front of the car just to give me a little bit more room. But next we're going to take off this cross member here and undo the bushing that holds your transmission up, and then we're going to pull out this whole cross member so we can get up in there a little bit easier. Alright, with that taken off, we can see what my initial problem was. This bolt over on the passenger side is MIA. It just fell out, and the rear bushing was scraping on here. Thankfully, it didn't knock off any of the balance weights. And then this bolt here was about 3 threads from falling out as well. That would have been a fun day if that one would have fallen out, because what I could do to drive home was from the inside hold up on the shift lever to keep this in this position instead of sagging down and rubbing on here. So next step is we're just going to undo this little bendable, I guess it's like a bendable zip tie. That'll give us a little bit of slack in this cable, and we're going to go ahead and pull out the front bushings, grease up the new ones, and slap them in. So pay attention to how this comes out. I used the double wrench method again on this 14 mil because I couldn't get enough torque on it with a single wrench unless you got like really long ones. And I couldn't get a socket in between, I guess, the trans tunnel and the bolt. So you start to back it out and it gets to about here, and you can pull this bracket towards the driver's side of the car. Now when you pull that bracket, you can see there's a little tab on this back side. Pay attention to how that came out. There's a little notch that it sits in up at the top. So now we can basically just pull this down, and don't pull too hard because remember your reverse lockout cable is here. Just pull it out enough to where you can pull your bolt all the way out. It's hard to do it one-handed, but basically just pull this, separate these two, and then this will be down far enough where you can get to working on it. All we're going to do is we're going to take a big old hefty flathead and we're going to shove it up inside of there and just bend it and work it out back until this comes out. We'll grease up the new ones, slap them in, and slide this back together loosely, and then make sure that that tab gets hooked back up there in that little notch up here. This is what I meant by walking it out. I put my screwdriver in here, wiggle it side to side till you can get it up in there, and then just pry it out slowly but surely. You can get it out until it's just in there by hand, and you work it out the rest of the way, and then you throw it in the trash as fast as you can. Definitely recommend using gloves for this unless you want to wash your hands 100 times, but basically just going to put grease all around pretty much any part that is going to rub on another part. So all around this inner part where it's going to slide into the shifter itself, and then once it's in there, I'm going to put grease all along this, slide that all the way in, and then before I put it up in there, I'm going to put grease all over the face of this and put it in there, bolt it down, and then maybe wipe some of the excess down so it's not going to be collecting nasty dirt and whatnot. Okay, 2 more tips. Don't be dumb like me. Don't put this all back together. Don't put this all back together till you take off the rear bushing, because once this is in, it's stiff and you can't get that out. Another tip, this rubber, I guess it's the inner shift. I guess it's like a shift liner or something. It's just a rubber thing of insulation. Not the one that you initially remove, but it's the next one underneath that. It's held in by, I think, a couple 10 mils. If you undo that, it'll give you a lot more wiggle room. You can actually pull it back down and through. Just make sure you push it back up. Focus. Just make sure you push it back up through the hole so it's back on the top before you completely screw yourself over and put all the rest of them back together. Next, we're going to grease up our new one and chuck it in. All right, update with a bunch of tips. Got this one back in and tight, put our Allen key back in the reverse lockout, and I forgot to do this. Put the cable back in the clip because I forgot. Okay, put the cable back over the clip back over the little cable because I just forgot. I had to fix it. Make sure you put your rear bushing on before you tighten the front back down, or else you'll have to pull it off like I did. Once it's on, tighten your front down nicely, but not like cinch down all the way. Get everything lined up before you tighten everything up fully. Last thing we're gonna have to do is make sure you push all of this back up and through so it's on the top half, and then we'll go ahead and put those bolts back in once we're up there. That wraps it up for underneath the car, but don't put everything back together until you're done with the top, because you're gonna have to come down here and remove this Allen key. Do not forget to pull out this Allen key at the end. Alright, I already disassembled everything prior to this video because I wanted to diagnose what the issue was before I ordered parts. So it's just kind of sitting here, but I'll walk you through it. Open your glove box, take out the inner liner, and remove those two, I believe they're either 10 or 12 millimeter bolts. I think they're 10, well, screw bolts. And then pry up on the e-brake boot. You're going to just pop that out, and you'll see down there a little 10 millimeter as well. You're going to undo, take out that 12 mil, and then this just pops up, and you can slide it back and leave it just like that. I just shoved the e-brake boot down so it's out of my way. Next, you're going to carefully pry up on this. It's going to lift out in the back, and then it's going to slide towards you in the front. Put your car in like second or fourth or sixth, or even reverse, and then this will just lift on out of here. You'll have to pry your little boot around your reverse lockout, but that's no big deal. Set that off to the side. Take off this inner rubber sound dampening bushing thing. It's all foam on the back. I gotta staple mine back down because it came up. Now, this was that boot that I was talking about that you could see from the bottom. What I did to diagnose my problem was I removed these 4 bolts here, and I could actually lift up on this. And I was looking to see if I could see the problem, and I could. This was actually hanging down, and I could feel in there and feel that there was just a missing bolt and that it wasn't a bigger issue. So now that we've done that, I'm going to actually screw this back down so I don't mess anything up. But we're going to clip this zip tie here. We're going to punch out this roll pin inside of our reverse lockout cable. And then we're going to slide all of our components off and insert the new one. Alright, so to remove the roll pin, it's a 1/8 inch punch is what I use that worked best. Put it into 4th. Turn your hammer sideways and strike with the metal plate on the side, and slowly tap it out until it gets to about here, and then from here carefully tap it out, because you do not want it falling in there and disappearing, because then you got to find a new one. All right, so once that pin's removed, this is going to want to fly off on you. I just put the pin in the cup holder because I do not want to lose it. Take your reverse lockout off, set it down to the side, take out your spring, also set it down. From there, we're going to remove the 12 millimeter bolt and nut that hold on the shifter itself, and then we're going to remove the C-clip down here and gently pop this out. Alright, so we remove the bolt. Before you remove the bolt, put it into like 1st or 2nd. It'll just give you a little bit more room to work with. Remove the bolt, pull the shifter over and out of the way, and then you're going to undo the C-clip. And once that C-clip is out, you're just going to pull up on this entire thing. I'm going to have to do it off camera because I'm going to break something. And as you pull up and out, this entire thing inside of here is going to pop out. Once you do that, for me, I'm going to clean up all in there because it's nasty. It has flakes of rubber and stuff all over it. And your reverse cable actually can come out right now. Just undo your reverse cable. That's where your little pin goes, through that hole. And you can just let that rest off to the side. So now we're going to pop this whole thing out. Okay, big tip. When you pop it out of there, this entire thing comes out. My bottom O-ring, you can see that O-ring right there, actually fell out and was sitting down in the bottom of its cup. Make sure both of those O-rings come out. Alright, so now that we're out here, you can see a little bit better. The new one already comes with bushings already in it, but what I'm going to do is slide this out, put a little bit of grease up in there, and then put a little bit of grease around here before putting it back in the car. Next, we're going to pop out these two Phillips screws and transfer the bottom of our shifter reverse lockout over to our new one. We're going to also transfer over the C-clip to here, and then pop this plastic thing. I'm going to pop it off completely, clean it all out, grease up these O-rings, make sure that O-ring sits on there, and put it onto here. Once it's all put onto here, I'm going to clean out inside the car real well, and then pop everything back in, and we'll put our bolt through, our reverse lockout cable. We'll start bolting everything back together. So there's an inner liner in here that you got to be careful because it'll turn sideways. But I'm going to drop this down onto here. See if I can get that to line up one-handed. Once I get into the hole, which it is now, I'm going to rotate my little pin, my little punch side to side, and boom, I'm all the way through to the back side. You can see it sticking out there. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my little roll pin and I'm going to slide it over top of that 1/16 punch and put it in the hole. And now as I tap this, it's going to push both of these out, keeping everything in line. All right. Tap the pin in until it's just beyond flush on the front. It'll be just beyond flush inside on the back side. And now let's go underneath, pull our little Allen key, and we can come up here and feel it. All right, time to start reassembling stuff on the top. If you removed the rubber, make sure you reinstalled this plate and the 4 10 mils that hold it in place. It slides underneath and keeps this bracket stiff, so put those 2 screws back in. Next, we're going to put the sound deadening boot back over all of this. Make sure you use the little plastic pop clip screws to hold that into place. I'm going to go ahead and staple mine back in so it stays, and then we'll get to putting our center console back together. Make sure before you put your center console back in that you plug in your little harness in the back corner over here for your light up STI. Then we're going to pop the front top 2 clips back into place, pop the back 2 clips down into place, and then feed our shift boot back over the little retaining notch thing back there. And then next we're going to move to our center console. We're going to put that little knob into that hole. And then we're going to put our 1 single Phillips head screw back into here, and then our 2 bolts back in there. Pop our e-brake boot back into place, and screw on our shift knob. All right, so we're back underneath the car. I just double, triple checked myself. Those are tight. Where are we? That's tight. And the reverse lockout cable, I already checked it up top, goes into reverse just fine, no binding. And the Kartboy kit comes with 2 zip ties, and you use one up top to secure the cable to the shifter itself. And I didn't like how low that this one was hanging, so I wanted at least a finger's width between the drive shaft and the cable. So I added another one just to keep it kind of snug, a little bit up tighter. I'm definitely going to check to make sure there's no binding before taking off, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. I don't want anything else catching or hanging up or causing issues with the drive line or a reverse lockout cable. So now that we're all tightened up, we're going to get this cross member and bushing back in place, and then we're going to go ahead and put our heat shield back in. So just an update on the shield trimming. There you can see where I trimmed it out, and I was able to just feed the heat shield in from the rear of the car around the O2 sensor, so I didn't even have to unplug it, didn't have to take out the exhaust, nothing. And as you can see with the bolts back there and these 2 bolts on either side of the cut, the whole heat shield does not move. Even around there, as I'm wiggling it, does not move. I don't know why Subaru did that in the first place, but if you guys are doing this, you might as well take care of it now, so next time when you go to re-grease up any of your awesome bushings, you don't have to fight that thing.